One of the most contested areas in the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia is Bakhmut, a city in eastern Ukraine that has been under intense pressure from Russian troops and Wagner Group mercenaries. Bakhmut is strategically significant for both sides, as it lies on a major highway that connects Donetsk and Luhansk, the two separatist-controlled regions that Russia wants to annex. Bakhmut is also a key industrial center, with coal mines, chemical plants and metallurgical factories that provide jobs and resources for the local population. Bakhmut has a long and turbulent history, dating back to the 16th century when it was founded as a border fort to protect the Russian state from Crimean and Nogai raids. In the 18th century, it became the capital of Slavo-Serbia, a semi-autonomous region populated by Serb and other Slavic settlers who fled from Ottoman oppression. In the 20th century, it was renamed Artemovsk after a Bolshevik leader and became part of the Soviet Union. After Ukraine gained independence in 1991, it retained its Soviet name until 2016, when it was restored to its original name of Bakhmut as part of the decommunization process. The war in eastern Ukraine reached Bakhmut in early 2022, when Russian forces launched a massive offensive to capture the city and cut off Ukrainian supply lines. The Ukrainian army and volunteer battalions put up a fierce resistance, but were outnumbered and outgunned by the Russian invaders. The city was soon surrounded and besieged, with constant shelling and sniper fire causing heavy casualties and destruction. The civilian population suffered from shortages of food, water, medicine and electricity, as well as human rights violations by both sides. Despite the odds, the Ukrainian defenders managed to hold on to parts of the city, especially in the northwest near a reservoir that provides water for the region. They also launched counterattacks to regain some ground and disrupt Russian supply lines. In May 2023, Ukraine announced that it had advanced by about 2 kilometers in the Bakhmut sector, inflicting great losses on the enemy. Russia admitted that some of its troops had fallen back to more advantageous defensive positions near the reservoir. 2 senior Russian commanders were killed in fighting near Bakhmut, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. The battle for Bakhmut is now the longest and bloodiest in the war, with no end in sight. The city is largely ruined, with most of its pre-war population of about 70,000 having fled or died. The remaining residents live in fear and uncertainty, hoping for peace and stability. The fate of Bakhmut is not only important for its strategic value, but also for its symbolic meaning. It represents the resilience and courage of the Ukrainian people who are fighting for their sovereignty and dignity against Russian aggression. The international reaction and support for Ukraine has been strong and consistent since the start of Russia's war on its neighbor in April 2022. The United Nations, the European Union, the United States and other countries have condemned Russia's aggression and violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. They have also imposed sanctions on Russia and provided military, economic and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. One of the most urgent concerns of the international community is the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is located near the front lines in eastern Ukraine. The plant is the largest in Europe and provides about 20% of Ukraine's electricity. It is also vulnerable to cyber attacks, sabotage and shelling by Russian forces. The UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has warned that any damage to the plant could have catastrophic consequences for the region and beyond. The IAEA has sent experts and equipment to help Ukraine enhance the security and resilience of the plant. It has also urged Russia to respect international law and refrain from any actions that could endanger the plant or its personnel. The United States and its allies have been the main sources of military assistance to Ukraine, providing weapons, training, intelligence and logistical support. The U.S. has delivered long-range missiles, anti-tank systems, drones, radars and other equipment to help Ukraine defend itself against Russia's superior firepower. The U.S. has also deployed additional troops and ships to the region to deter further Russian escalation. The UK, Canada, Poland, Turkey and other NATO members have also contributed to Ukraine's defense by sending military advisors, instructors, special forces and medical teams. They have also participated in joint exercises and patrols with Ukrainian forces. The UK has announced a further €2.7 billion of military aid to Ukraine during President Zelensky's visit to Berlin on May 14. Germany, France, Italy and other EU countries have focused more on economic and humanitarian support to Ukraine, as well as diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the conflict. They have offered loans, grants, trade preferences and debt relief to help Ukraine cope with the costs of war and reform its economy. They have also provided humanitarian aid to millions of people affected by the fighting, especially in the areas near the front lines. Germany and France have been leading the so-called Normandy format talks with Ukraine and Russia since 2014, aiming to implement a peaceful resolution based on the Minsk agreements. However, these talks have stalled due to Russia's refusal to withdraw its troops, release prisoners and restore Ukraine's control over its border. The last meeting of the Normandy format leaders took place in Paris in December 2019. In May 2023, China announced that it would send an envoy to Ukraine and Russia to promote peace talks. China has been trying to portray itself as a neutral mediator in the conflict, despite its strategic partnership with Russia. China has also been pursuing its economic interests in both countries through its Belt and Road Initiative. However, China's role as a peacemaker has been met with skepticism by Western nations, who see Beijing as an unreliable actor that could undermine their efforts to pressure Moscow. The international community has repeatedly called on Russia to stop its aggression against Ukraine and respect its sovereignty and territorial integrity. It has also expressed its solidarity and support for Ukraine's aspirations to join NATO and the EU. However, Russia has ignored these calls and continued its war on Ukraine, claiming that it is defending its own interests and security. The conflict has become one of the most dangerous flashpoints in Europe since the end of the Cold War.